A senator wanted by the International Criminal Court was hiding inside the Philippine Senate building. Then the gunshots started, and now the country's most famous media family is demanding answers from the Senate's own leadership. This is the story of the May 13 shooting. It is the story of a fugitive, a locked chamber, and a WhatsApp group that may or may not have been read. And it is the story of a democracy under pressure, trying to figure out exactly what happened inside one of its most sacred institutions. Stay with me, because this one goes deeper than it first appears. Let's start with what we know for certain. On the evening of May 13th, 2026, more than a dozen gunshots rang out inside the Philippine Senate complex in Pasay City, Manila. Journalists were there. Cameras were rolling. The sound of those shots was broadcast live on national television into Filipino homes across the country. That alone was an extraordinary moment. It had never happened before. Inside that buoy, LIDE, Senator Ronald Bato Dela Rosa had been sheltering for 2 days. Dela Rosa is the former national police chief who implemented former President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs, a crackdown that, according to international investigators, left thousands of people dead. The International Criminal Court had issued a warrant for his arrest on charges of crimes against humanity. And when law enforcement agents arrived to execute that warrant, Dela Rosa did not surrender. He stayed inside the Senate. He called his supporters on social media and asked them to come. Then came the shots, according to reports. Police have since identified a suspect, a driver linked to the National Bureau of Investigation, the agency that had been attempting to carry out the ICC warrant. The NBI itself has denied ordering any shooting. The sequence of events and who fired first remains disputed. What is not disputed is this: when the chaos subsided, Dela Rosa was gone. He had slipped out of the building. A sitting senator wanted by an international court had walked out of his own legislature under the cover of pandemonium. That fact landed like a stone in still water, and the ripples have not stopped. Now enter the Tulfos. Senators Raffy and Erwin Tulfo, brothers, broadcasters, members of the Philippines' most prominent media family, sit in the minority bloc of the Senate. They were not inside that closed caucus meeting on the night of May 13. Senate President Peter Cayetano had restricted that meeting to majority bloc members. The minority senators, according to reports, had already left the building. In the days that followed, Senator Pia Cayetano, sister of Senate President Peter Cayetano, and herself a senator, became emotional on the Senate floor. She described the fear she and her colleagues felt that night. She said she was deeply hurt that members of the minority bloc had not reached out to check on the majority senators after the shooting. Nobody, she said. Dee asked how they were doing. That statement was personal, it was raw, and it drew wide attention. Senator Erwin Tulfo pushed back. He told reporters speaking in Filipino that minority senators had in fact sent messages through a shared WhatsApp group used by senators from both blocs. He named specific colleagues who he said had reached out: Senator Bam Aquino, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan, and himself. Tulfo said he was on his way to Baclaran Church when he heard about the shooting and sent messages immediately. He said he could not explain why Senator Pia Cayetano had not seen those messages. Maybe, he offered, because of the commotion or the fear, no one was able to tell her. He was careful. He did not accuse. He said it was possible she simply missed them. That is a small but significant distinction. He was not attacking her. He was contesting her account. There is a difference. But the Tulfos were not finished. Erwin Tulfo went further, raising questions about what Senate President Peter Cayetano actually knew on the night of May 13 and when he knew it. Cayetano had told reporters that the Senate was under attack. It was a striking claim. Malacañang, the presidential palace, immediately disputed it. The Philippine National Police disputed it. The Department of the Interior and local government disputed it. Multiple agencies, in other words, were saying the Senate was not under attack in any organized sense. So why did Cayetano say it was? According to Senator Erwin Tulfo, the answer lies with one man, Mau Aplaska, the acting sergeant-at-arms of the Senate. Tulfo said Aplaska was the one firing reports from the field into the room where Cayetano and the majority senators were sheltering. He said Aplaska's descriptions of the situation were exaggerated and alarming, and that Cayetano, cut off from direct information and relying entirely on those radio reports, understandably panicked. Sina, Tor Cayetano, was inside with all the senators. Tulfo told reporters, and they were just getting a report from Aplaska. Investigations, he noted, have shown that Aplaska fired warning shots without a clear target. They were focused on a single area, Tulfo said. It looked like they were shooting at a shadow. Tulfo has called for a Senate committee of the whole investigation. He wants Aplaska questioned directly. He wants to know why no clear protocol existed for a situation like this. There's no manual, he said. That line was simple. Its implications were not. A senator wanted by the ICC had been harbored inside the Senate for 2 days, and the body responsible for security had no playbook for what to do when it turned dangerous. Step back for a moment, because what is happening in that building is not just a political squabble. It is a test of institutions. The Philippines re-engaged with the International Criminal Court under the Marcos administration after years of distancing, during the Duterte era, when the ICC unsealed its warrant against Dela Rosa. In May 2026, the government said it considered the warrant valid and pledged cooperation. That was a meaningful signal to the international community. But then a senator hid in the legislature for 2 days. Soldiers stormed up the stairs, shots were fired, and Dela Rosa walked free. The Philippines Justice Secretary has since reaffirmed the country's commitment to apprehending Dela Rosa and surrendering him to The Hague. That pledge is now being watched closely, not just in Manila, but in international legal circles. Former President Rodrigo Duterte himself is already in The Hague, detained and awaiting trial. Dela Rosa's case is the next chapter in that reckoning. What happens now will say something about whether Philippine institutions can hold under political pressure. And in the middle of all that, we have senators arguing over WhatsApp messages. That is not a trivial matter. It is a symptom. When the most powerful legislators in the country cannot agree on something as basic as who checked in on whom after a crisis, it tells you something about the depth of the fracture inside that building. To be fair to Senator Pia Cayetano, the fear she described on the Senate floor was real. She was locked in a room, cut off from information, hearing shots she could not explain, relying on radio reports that turned out to be inaccurate. That is a genuinely frightening experience. Her emotion was not performance. Whatever the facts about the WhatsApp messages, the experience of that night left marks on those who were inside. And to be fair to the Tulfos, their questions are legitimate. A Senate investigation into the events of May 13 is not harassment. It is accountability. The Philippine public deserves to know who ordered what, who fired when, why the acting sergeant at arms had no clear protocol, and how a senator facing an international warrant was able to escape while the building was surrounded. These are not partisan questions. They are the kinds of questions a functioning legislature should ask of itself. Senator Raffy Tulfo has separately noted that questions about Senator Robin Padilla's possible accountability, given that Dela Rosa escaped under his watch within the majority bloc, should also be addressed. That thread has not been fully pulled yet, but it is there. So where does this go from here? The Senate has promised an investigation. The Philippines has promised to cooperate with the ICC in ultimately surrendering Dela Rosa. The NBI investigation into the shooting itself continues. According to reports, the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, another figure at the intersection of the Duterte era's legacy, is set to begin in July. The political temperature in Manila is not dropping anytime soon. What the Tulfo brothers have done in challenging both the under attack narrative and the claim that minority senators stayed silent is inject a coup. Entability into a story that powerful people would probably prefer to close. That is sometimes what minority politicians do. Whether it leads anywhere depends on whether the promised investigation has real teeth or whether it becomes another closed caucus meeting to which some people are simply not invited. The guns were real. The fear was real. The escape was real. What remains to be determined is who bears responsibility for all three. And here is the question for you watching this. When a senator can hide from an international court inside his own legislature and then walk away, what does that tell us about the limits of accountability in a democracy? Let us know what you think in the comments below.